Welcome to Athar's Garage. In this video, I'll be working on the Yokomo Rookie Speed 2.0, steps 6 through 7. So let's get started. Alright, the first thing that we're going to do in step 6 is create some turnbuckles. We're going to create two different sizes. One is going to be the steering link, so we're going to create two of those. And then we're going to create a smaller one, which is the servo link that goes from the servo to the steering system. So let's go ahead and start with the steering links. We're going to use the 39mm turnbuckle, which is the larger one. And then we will also need the larger of the ball cups. They're going to be longer. So you can see the one over here is longer than that one. So we're going to need 4 of these. So just take note of that. And the ball cups are directional. So as you can see here, this side over here, the ball stud will go in from. So just take note of that. We're going to have one ball cup on the outside of the car facing down, and the one on the inside of the car is going to be facing the back of the vehicle. And I'm going to apply a little bit of chapstick on the threads to help them get started and be lubricated, so that way they are easy to adjust. Additionally, you can always use some black grease, but this has been working well for me, so I'm going to stick to it. And then if you look at the turnbuckle, there is a notch on it. So this notch is showing a right-hand thread. So just take note of that. Usually the notch means left-hand thread, but in this case it is right-hand thread. And we want the gap between the turnbuckles to be 26.5mm. So I'm going to say this is my right side turnbuckle. So I know the left side is going to face towards the back and the right side is going to face down. So that way I can orient my turnbuckles in the correct orientation. Close to 26.5. So that's going to be my right side. I'll go ahead and do the left side. For the left side, we're going to have the left-hand thread on the left side and the notch facing the right side, which is the right-hand thread. And so the right side turnbuckle is going to face towards the back, and the left side turnbuckle is going to face down. So that's close, so I'll fix that once it's on the car and attached. Now we can create the servo link that goes from the servo to the linkage itself. And again, we're going to use the short ball cups, and the gap between the ball cups is going to be 13mm. And we might end up adjusting that once everything's installed. And again, the right side ball cup is going to face down. So just take note of the offset. Doesn't look like this ball cup has a special offset, but the right side is going to face down and the left side will face towards the back of the vehicle. All right, so that's close. We can adjust it once it's on the car. So our turnbuckles are assembled. Now we can get our bell crank system assembled. So on this parts tree here, we're going to need this part here, as well as the bell cranks here and here. All right, so we've got 3 ball studs that we're going to install. We're going to install one on the top here, and then 2 in this hole and this hole. Now we can go ahead and pop on our turnbuckles. So the servo link is going to go on just like so. And then we can install the other 2. Now we can assemble the bell cranks. So the bell cranks are going to install with 4 5x8 bearings. So we can go ahead and just install those in the bell cranks. And take a look at the bell cranks. There's a right side and a left side. I don't see any markings on here, but there's this little bump on the inside. So this is the right side and this is the left side. So it's going to install like so. And this orientation, this is the front of the car. This is the rear. We're going to need 2 M3x10 screws. And then we will need these king pillar collars along with some black grease. So we're going to apply some black grease to the outside, and then we're going to install it into these holes here and here. Now we can take the 2 M3x10 screws. They'll go through this hole here and into the bell cranks. And you don't want to over tighten this because then it won't move freely. So now we're at the part where we can install this assembly onto the chassis. So let's go ahead and grab our chassis. And it doesn't say to do this. It doesn't say to use Loctite, but these are metal. So we want to install these screws with a little bit of blue Loctite. They're N3x6. So we want to make sure that they don't back out. These are going to install in this orientation like so. And then we're going to install the 2 M3x6 screws with some blue Loctite. Don't put too much because it'll get in the bearings and then they'll seize up and you won't have good steering. Now we can set the chassis aside for a little bit and get our servo installed on the mount. So we're going to need the servo mount itself as well as our servo horn. I'm using a 25 tooth servo, so I'll be using the F servo or the Futaba. That is 25 teeth. So we can go ahead and install the last ball stud into the servo horn. And then we can make sure that the servo horn is centered. And we're going to install the servo horn with an M3x8 button head screw. And I will install it with some blue Loctite. Alright, so the servo mounts like so. We're going to use 2 M3x6 button head screws along with 2 3x7 by 0.5 washers. And we're going to install those screws in these 2 holes here and here. Next, we're gonna install a M3 by 15 millimeter screw from behind the servo with a washer and a lock nut. So now the servo is ready to install onto the chassis, and we're going to need a few things to install as we do that. So we're going to need the front sidebar as well as the rear sidebar. And the front sidebar installs first before we install the servo. So just take note of that. So this is the front sidebar. So it's going to sit on top here with that second hole lining up with this hole, and then this hole is going to be underneath this tab right here, just like so. Now we can install the servo in that location, and we're going to put a M3 by 12 screw through this hole, and it'll install into the servo mount. And then for the rear mount, you have these bosses that indicate the bottom side. So those bosses will go into these countersunk holes here and kind of help locate it. And we're going to install an M3 by 12 screw in this hole and an M3 by 8 screw in this hole. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to install two M3 by 8 flathead screws in this hole and this hole, and that'll hold the servo. All right, there we go. And then lastly, we can pop on our servo link onto the ball stud on the servo horn. So that's it for steps 6 through 7. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did. Let me know down in the comments if you had any issues or have any tips or tricks. It'd be great for the community. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.